Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper, an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. Today I have for you an overlapping fun fold card. This card is one that's been on my project list for quite a while, but I thought it was really complicated. And then I took a look at another video by Designs by Gloria. It's wonderful that demonstrators get to share all sorts of ideas with each other. And I realized that this card was not as complicated as it looked or as I thought it might be. In fact, it's one of the simplest supply lists I have for any card I've ever done. So I'm going to show you how to make it. The first thing you're going to need is a piece of cardstock that is 8.5 by 5.5, and you want to score it in half on the long side, so score it at 4 1/4. Basically, we're just creating a card base. This one is thick basic white. It's just a little thicker than our regular cardstock, and so this is going to be my card base. The other main thing that I need is a piece of designer series paper where I like both sides of the paper because both of them are going to show. This is actually some of our brand new celebration paper if you're watching in January or February 2022. It's available now. It's a free product with a purchase. For every $50 or $100 you spend during these next 2 months, you get to pick a special item from a special brochure, and this paper is part of it. You'll see more of this paper in just a few minutes. If you do not currently have a demonstrator you're working with, you can either check out my website and find the catalog online, or if you're like me and you prefer a paper catalog in your hands, just get in touch with me and I'll be happy to send you one. So this piece of lovely designer series paper is 5 1/4 by 4. And I'm going to show you what we need to do to very simply create this card. You're going to need a pencil and a ruler. So I have that here ready to go. And the first thing I'm going to do is make one little pencil mark on my card base. And it's kind of going to look like I'm doing this upside down, but I'll show you why in just a minute. I think it'll make sense to you. For starters, I like my pencil marks to be up towards the edge where I can easily erase them, not down on the body of the card. Plus, if I do it this way, my ruler is the right way up and closer to the edge of the paper. So on my cardstock, on the short side, so that's the 5 1/2 inch side, we're going to put a pencil mark in the middle at 2 3/4. Just a little pencil mark, doesn't have to be too big. And then before you put your ruler and your pencil away, you're going to want to take a look at your designer series paper. Now, if both sides of your designer series paper are dark, you might want to grab a white colored pencil just to give you a little bit easier time to see the mark. I'm actually just going to flip mine over to the lighter side. And I'm going to make a mark on the long side of the designer series paper. And since this is a 1/4 inch smaller, this center mark is going to be at 2 5/8 of an inch. So there we go, tiny little pencil mark. Now keep your pencil handy, you're going to want that eraser in a little bit. Now here's the one piece of cutting we're going to do on each of these papers. So bring over a paper trimmer. I have our paper trimmer scorer. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut from my little pencil tick mark down to the center score line on both sides of the card. So to do that, I'm just going to line that up on this little cutting track here. So pencil mark at the top, and then the score line at the bottom. And then once I'm pretty confident I have them both centered, I just close the arm here. And I cut the triangle off, set this to the side, you're going to need it. Flip your cardstock around and you're going to do the same thing, but this time you're going to cut from the score line down to your pencil mark, creating a triangle shape. Second triangle that you're going to save, and you can see here, we formed the base of our card. Now we're just going to do the same thing with our piece of designer series paper, but you're cutting corner to tick mark. There's no score line here, so I'm going to go from that pencil tick mark at the top to the corner. Again, saving these pieces, and then flip around to create this not quite perfect triangle. All right, that's all the cutting we need to do. Now, grab your pencil. If you've got any pencil marks showing, just take your eraser and erase that a little bit. You don't want that showing on your card. Okay, first step, if you have a silicone craft mat, I highly recommend you get it out for this because you want to get glue to the corners of your triangle. It's kind of important so that they don't pull off the card. So here's my card base, and you will see that this triangle only fits on one way. If you try to put it on wrong, you're going to see, hey, that looks a little funny. So you'll be able to tell which way. This is just a little bit longer on that one side. So I'm going to put some adhesive here. Now, if liquid glue is your adhesive of choice, use that. You're just going to have to hold it still for a minute before you continue on. Or you can use a tape runner. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to try to stick as close to the edge as possible, but also get the corners of my triangle. And it's up to you which side of the designer series paper you want to put facing up. For this one, I'm using the lighter side for the big centerpiece, and then you'll see what I'm going to do here in a minute with the other pieces. All right, so if you have any adhesive that might be hanging over, just fold it back. But I like to work on the silicone craft mat, and that way I'm not getting glue on my table, which then I always stick a card in and mess something up. So I much prefer my craft mat, which I can wipe clean when I'm finished. So then you're just going to line up your triangle here and leave a little bit of a border. Sometimes this works really well for me, and other times it's a little wonky. This one isn't too bad. If you cut your paper a little off center, you're going to notice it, but usually it's not bad enough that you have to start over. All right, so here's the main piece. I'm going to set this to the side. Then I have these two triangles that I cut off the front of the card. And what I'm going to do is take these pieces of designer series paper and glue them to the triangles of cardstock. Now for this card, I want to use the opposite side. So I want to feature this beautiful floral paper. So I'm just going to glue these on just like I did with that triangle, just slightly different shaped. And again, you want to get this as close to the corner as possible and the edges of that little triangle piece so it doesn't flop around. I always think of this once I'm live on video, but you could put a little glue dot here and then adhesive on the rest and just get a little more glue towards those corners. But up to you, and liquid glue again would work just fine on these. So a little bit of a border, and then again on this piece. And I will show you some samples with different ideas for how you can use your designer series paper for different looks. All right, little adhesive to tuck back here. The Stampin' Seal Plus is my favorite. It's my go-to adhesive. Unlike a regular tape runner, this has segmented pieces of the tape, like little rectangles, and it's beautiful, and it folds back so well if you happen to run over the edge a little bit. So again, a little bit of a border. Oop. That one I cut a little crooked, but it's okay. We're rolling with it anyway. All right. So now assembly, and this is where I thought this was going to be a complicated process, and it really wasn't. What we're going to do is we're going to take these triangles, and you're going to put the wide ends to the outside of the card and crisscross the narrow ends at the top of the card. So what I like to do, I always like to lay them out first and just kind of get a feel for how I'm going to do this. But this is the effect we're going for, see? So you might want to bring your silicone craft mat out one more time. And there's two ways you can do this. You can just simply work here as you're gluing the pieces down, or I'll show you another tip. I did this a couple times, and your silicone mat has a little bit of a see-throughness to it. And since I'm using a nice light colored cardstock, I'm actually just going to pop this right in here up to the fold line and fold the card over, and I can see the edges of my card base. So now as I'm gluing, I can actually have this mat here and not worry about getting glue on my work surface. So I think I'm going to start with this one. So the important part here is as you're gluing, you're not going to glue the entire panel down, because if you did that, you'd glue the card shut. This one, you want to leave, I say about 2 fingers. I say I have fat fingers, but depending on the size of your fingers, if they're skinny or not, I do just about 2 fingers width without glue on the wider end of the triangle. Does that make sense? So when I flip it over here, I have a tendency to do it this way. Kind of keep my fingers. First thing I do is take my glue and I run a straight strip across this way. And now I know don't put any glue over here. And then I'm just going to run tape to the end. Again, go onto the edge of that triangle. Fold any excess back. And then when I take the triangle here, I'm going to line up the bottom point first and then the side point here. But before I press it down, I'm going to make sure my angle is right, because I have a habit when I put my point down at the bottom, I tend to bring it this way too much and I'd be hanging off the top. So I like to bottom point, side point, and you can bring this in a little bit if you want. It's up to you, but I try to match up my edge of the card with this point over here. But then before I press it down, I make sure that this piece is where I want it to be on the card front. Like that. Hopefully I haven't scared you off with my complicated directions. I just want you to understand how you need to line it up. And then we're going to repeat with the other side. So again, about 2 fingers worth. And you can see how I didn't put extra glue here, and this will open and close still. That's the important part. All right. So now, again, repeat with your other panel. Bottom point, side point, and here I go trying to aim off the top. It's like I'm launching a rocket ship or something. Say, nope, fix that. And then when you're happy with where it's lined up, like that, give it a good press. And here is your card, and I kind of laugh. When you open the card, it looks like a Viking hat. I made somebody giggle when I told them that. All right, so the next thing I need to do is just finish decorating the card. I'm keeping this one very simple because I don't want to take away from this beautiful DSP. And since I was a little crooked here with my paper cutting, it's okay, I'm going to hide it a little bit. You can decorate the front of your card however you like, with punches, die cuts, any shape and size. I am opting for 2 of the layering circle dies that we have, both cut out pale papaya cardstock. And I'm going to bring over my Stampin' Pierce mat because the stamps that I'm using, which is our garden birdhouses, I'm not using any of the bird stamps, I'm just using the words. I'm using birthday wishes, and then the matching sentiment for the inside, which is hope each moment of your day is as special as you are. This is photopolymer. It's actually clear, so it doesn't have a built-in cushion. So I need this little mat underneath to just give my stamping a good impression. I'm going to use some Evening Evergreen ink. And the trick is not to do CPR with your stamps. This took me a while to learn because I think you want to make sure you have enough ink on your stamp, and then you press it down and you've got too much ink and there's ink everywhere on your paper, on your desk, on your fingers, and that just transfers to all sorts of things. So remember, you need a gentle touch. Whether it's photopolymer stamps or red rubber cling, this process works for both. Tap gently. I like tap, tap, tap. I can take a look and say, I might need a little more ink on that. Tap, tap, tap again. And then when I bring it over to my circle, I just press down 1, 2, 3, and then lift up. Now, if you have a small shape like this, it might get stuck for a minute. Sometimes it falls off on its own, and if not, just flip it with your finger a little bit. And there is my sentiment for the front of my card. And now I just need to flip open the inside of my card here and do the same thing with my sentiment. Tap, tap, tap. And then 1, 2, 3, and there is my card. So now, close up my ink pad so I don't get ink anywhere I don't want. What I'm going to do is simply layer my 2 circles together with a last little bit of adhesive. And then once that's together, a couple dimensionals on the back. Peel the backing off. And you can position your sentiment piece wherever you like. If you want it at the top to cover this part of the crisscross, you can. I have a tendency to lower it a little bit and put it more central, like that. But there's your card, and that wasn't really complicated to make. So I love that. All right, so now I want to show you some more ideas. One thing I'm going to show you right off the bat is if you're like me, if you see a card like this, you're probably thinking, okay, that's fine, but I'm going to really have to think when I sign my name inside. If you like to write messages, I'm always paranoid that I'm going to write my name and it's going to be sticking out here at the bottom, off to the side or where I don't want it to show through. So I have an easy fix for you on how to take care of that, to kind of remove that worry from your card if you, in fact, do have that worry. So I have a Valentine's Day sample like this with some of our brand new Valentine paper. And again, I like it, but I'm gonna have to worry if I write this to my husband where I put my name. So here's a quick fix. All I'm going to do is take a panel the same size as this one. It's 5 1/4 by 4. It's what I call my standard insert. I'm gonna lay it right on top of that piece that I've already glued inside the card so I can make it match. And I'm going to put glue here on the inside of the flap. I'm not going to put it super close to the score line though, because it would get stuck and my card might stick a little bit, but I can put glue everywhere else. Maybe not the very edges here of these outer lying triangles, but like this. And then I'm going to fold my card shut. Give it a press, and check this out. The card looks the same, but now I've eliminated that worry and I can write whatever I want in the card. Now this is one way you can do it. If you have this sentiment piece on the inside, you can just layer it just like I did. Or if you want, you can cut a piece of cardstock that is 5 1/4, no, I'm sorry, 5 1/2 by 4 1/4, the same size as your card base, and do the same thing. You're just gonna butt it right up against that score line, and then you can glue the whole thing. And you can create the same effect on your card, just like I did that with one of my earlier samples here. So this is the same size, but again, I can write whatever I like without fear of it showing through the card. Okay, so just a quick little tip for you. Now, I'm always all about the options. I've decided that's my new tagline. I like to have my projects be a springboard for you for other ideas in how you can use the card. You're not just tied into this layout. And I kind of had a happy accident when I was working on some of my samples, and I turned one of my cards sideways on my table while I was working, and I said, oh, hey, guess what? This layout works in both directions. So it might depend on your designer series paper, but you can also switch the card to a vertical orientation. And here I did use a panel of real red, same size as my insert, so that I can write what I like. But there you go, the card works in both directions. So I just thought that was a fun little tip. And I do have a couple other samples to show you. Here is another one in the horizontal orientation. And for this one, I didn't put any words on the front, but I did fussy cut some flowers that coordinate with my designer series paper. I added a little bit of bling. And then here's the inside of the card. And you can really change up the look of your card by changing how you put the DSP on. I used the same designer series paper on both these cards. I just flipped which ones I used for the larger triangle or for the smaller ones. And then in this case, I added a pop of color with the panel of cardstock I added. And this one actually goes this way. So you can see quick and simple changes really change the look of your card, and it can still be a lot of fun. And then last but not least, I have one other suggestion for you. I was working with this beautiful daffodil paper, which you saw in that first card, and I realized after I cut the pieces that I did not like the flip side of this paper when I used it on the smaller triangles. I'm going to show you how it looks in the larger triangle on the next card. But I thought, you know what, I don't really like that. So I thought, why couldn't I just glue them all the same way? The effect of the card is still beautiful. It's a little more subtle with the crisscross at the top, but it's actually a beautiful card even with the paper matching. So for this one, I just die cut the stamped image out after I colored it with my Stampin' Blends. And then I made the Some Mother's Day card. I'm getting ahead on a few things. And then I thought this one was going to be my favorite, but as it turned out, this one actually was. And here's the back side of this paper. And so when I went to use it on these smaller triangles, I just didn't like it at all. So for this one, I liked it with a larger triangle. I took a smaller image and trimmed it out. And then I used the panel of cardstock, like I showed you, for this one. And I added some stamping around the edges just because I didn't like too much of the plain cardstock look. So lots of different ways you can put this card together with the same process. So I really hope you enjoyed learning how to make our overlapping fun fold card. If you have not already, I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can just click that notification bell and it'll notify you every time I post a new video, which is typically twice a week. And if you like, you can follow me over on Facebook at The Faithful Stamper. I post different projects and events that I am doing there as well, and I would love to have you there as a fan. Thank you so much for watching. Take care, and happy crafting.